All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Brad and well, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Nikki GiancolaShanks. I am the Director of Outreach and the Director of External Affairs and Student Loan Policy for IDFPR, or the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. Just a few housekeeping things. We are going to use the chat today for questions. The presentation is kind of long, as there are different parts, so the presentation itself will probably be about 45-50 minutes, and then we will have a chance to go through questions. So it's easiest to kind of, as questions come up, you could use the chat, and Brad and I will then, when one of us is presenting, we'll try to answer throughout the presentation, but otherwise we'll go through all questions at the end as well. So this is scheduled till 4:30, but the presentation itself, if you don't have any questions, once it's done, feel free to hop off. If you do, Brett and I will be sticking around for questions. So that is who I am. Brad, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brett Fletcher. I am the Consumer Services Manager for the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. I am in charge of the licensing and examination of the student loan servicers for Illinois.
All right, so you guys are obviously all here to talk about the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program. And so the overview of our presentation today, just to kind of give you a lay of the land, we're going to talk about first quickly why Brad and I are coming to talk to you guys about this. IDFPR may not be exactly who you'd expect. We're going to go through some of the basics of student loans, and then we're going to get into the meat of it, which is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. The way that we're going to do this, because as many of you guys know, President Biden has announced a lot of different initiatives. We're going to start by going through what the PSLF program, what you needed up until this point to make this work. And then we're going to talk about the waiver and how that kind of ties in. And then we'll talk about the mass forgiveness he also announced. All right, so IDFPR student loans, we do actually play a really important role in Illinois, specifically for student loan borrowers. We license and monitor any of the consumer credit licensees who make student loans, debt collectors who collect defaulted student loans, and approximately 40, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure. Okay. So approximately 40 student loan servicers who collect payments and provide borrowers with student loan information. That is actually Brad's specialty. He is the one who kind of examines all these loan servicers. We also administer the student loan bill of rights. So your rights in Illinois, this was a relatively new bill that was passed. So within Illinois, you are guaranteed you should be getting clear and accurate loan information. You should have prompt and accurate handling of payments. All loan options should be explained to you by your servicer. You should be able to call up your servicer at any time to ask for a payment history information. And if you have any sort of disputes, they should be solved in a timely manner. So this is just kind of good to know as you interact a lot with your servicer, what you have the right to ask. And if you feel like your servicers are not providing you what you need, we will go through how you can get a hold of, particularly Brad, to talk about that. All right, so the basics of student loans. So there are a few terms that we just want to make sure everybody is aware of and the difference between them as we go through this. The first is deferment. Deferment, you have to apply for deferment. It is not just given to you. So you have to kind of prove that you're having some sort of economic hardship. And it does not forgive your student loan, but it does let you stop making payments for up to 3 years. During that 3 years, interest does not accrue. This is only for federal loans. Your forbearance, that allows you to suspend or either lower monthly payments for usually around 12 months a year. However, what is oftentimes not brought to borrowers' attention is interest continues to accrue during your forbearance months. And once your forbearance is over, you will owe all that interest on your first payment. And then loan servicers, we're going to be talking a lot about loan servicers today. So the servicer is the person who actually, your lender, whoever the bank, or in most cases, here the federal government, uses in order to process your billing, respond to questions. In essence, it's who you pay every month for your loan. So there are two main types of student loans. There's private loans and federal loans. So the private loans are offered by a private sector lender, and usually private loans are taken out in conjunction with the federal loan. So maybe the cost of your education isn't quite covered by what you could get from the federal loan side, so then you need to take out a private loan. These loans typically have higher interest rates, and private loans are not eligible for any type of federal loan forgiveness programs, not PSLF, not the mass cancellation. They're not eligible. Federal loans are offered by the federal government, and there's two main types. There's Federal Family Education Loan Program, which is called FEL, or the William D. Ford Direct Lending Program, known as DIRECT. The vast majority of people have federal loans. And so for this presentation, we are only focused on federal loans. If you don't know if your loan is federal or private, there are a few things that you can do. You could log on to studentaid.gov using your financial student aid ID, and all of your loan information will be there. If your loan is not listed there, that means that loan is not federal, it is a private loan. You can contact your loan servicer and ask if they're private or federal. Also, review your bill statement. And I know it's kind of tricky right now because not everybody's getting bill statements due to the payment pause, but federal loans have the name of your servicer and the name of your loan program at the top. And many private loans have private in big letters on the top. And you could always call this phone number and a representative will help you. So there are many types of federal student loans. The two most talked about are the Federal Family Education Loan, otherwise known as FEL. There are two types within this that you may see on a statement or that a servicer may talk to you about. It's commercial held FEL, which means that your bank or financial institution is the lender, or the ed held FEL loan, which means the federal government is the lender. The FEL loans means that the federal government guarantees the loan. However, after 2010, this type of loan is no longer given. So if you know automatically that you have a federal loan, student loan, and you got it in 2012, it's going to be a direct loan. Anything prior to 2010 may be FEL. There are other loan types out there as well. I know that some educators are just learning about this program now, and you guys may have been teaching for 25 years already. So, there were Perkins loans. There were a whole bunch of different loans, but these are the two most common right now. So a direct loan means that the federal government is the lender. There are different types of direct loans. The first one is a subsidized direct loan, and that's for undergraduate students who demonstrate financial need. Unsubsidized direct loans are for undergraduate, graduate, and professional studies, not based on need. So subsidized means you're probably getting some sort of money hence the word unsubsidized or not. A plus loan is for graduate professional students or parents of dependent undergraduate students. And then one key term with direct loans that we want to make sure everybody is aware of today, because we're going to be talking about a lot, is consolidation. That allows you to combine all your federal loans into a single loan with a single server. So the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, also known as PSLF. So I just want to talk about the purpose of PSLF a little bit so you guys can keep that in your mind as we go through this program and we talk about it. It was created in 2007, and the goal of the program under the law was to encourage public sector work. So participants would have their remaining loan balance forgiven completely after 120 qualifying payments. Why 120 qualifying payments? It's 10 years of public service. So essentially they were saying, hey, come into the public sector and any type of public sector, government, 501c3 not-for-profit, teachers, military, everybody who does any sort of public service on any level, you work 10 years and your remaining loan balance would be forgiven. The first batch of borrowers became eligible in October of 2017 because, again, 120 payments, 10 years. However, what ended up happening was that there was a very high denial rate for PSLF applications, less than 2%, according to the Department of Ed. This is because the intent of the law then became a little bit, there were rules put in place that had very, very strict eligibility criteria, and borrowers weren't made aware of what that criteria was, and they would sometimes get inaccurate or incomplete information from their servicer. So it's really important to know what is required and to keep on track. So we've kind of been mentioning that about this PSLF temporary waiver. So the Biden administration actually announced this October 6th of 2021. It's obviously getting a little bit more attention right now because of all the other federal announcements that came. The waiver runs through October 31st of this year. So again, the whole point of the waiver is to make sure that more borrowers qualify for forgiveness than ever before. So we're going to start out. I'm going to turn it over to Brad, and he's going to talk about the PSLF program as a whole and what you need traditionally to qualify for this program. And then we'll talk about the waiver because it makes a little bit more sense that way.
All right, so we're gonna talk about the original PSLF program. So part of the elements that we have to talk about is what constitutes as the right job, the right loan, the right payment plans, and the right number of payments. So we'll start off first with the right job.
Sorry, I was responding to somebody who was having a hard time getting on. There you go.
So the right full-time job. You have to be a government employee, an employee of a local, state, federal, or tribal government, or you have to work for a public service organization, such as a 501c3, non-for-profits, or other non-profits as well. It could be education, public health, military, library, etc. And for the purposes of the program, full-time is considered to be at least 30 hours per week, averaged annually, for a contractual or employment period of at least 8 months, and an average of 30 hours per week. And if you only have one employer, the number of the hours that employer considers full-time. Some employers are 40 repayment plan will count towards the original PSLF. The temporary new PSLF waiver, the PSLF waiver does help out in this situation, though, and like Nikki said, we will be going through those. We'll go into that a little bit later. So there are many qualifying repayment plans available. You do need to select the one that is best fit for you. You can submit the PSLF form to certify all qualifying payments from a previous employer. So if you previously worked at a qualifying employer while you were making payments, you can submit the PSLF form for those payments too. If you have worked for two different employers that do qualify for the PSLF program, you will have to submit two different forms. With the original PSLF program, you must apply while you are still working at that qualifying employer. So that is one of the problems that they've seen over the years. So, a great place to start is studentaid.gov/loan simulator. It's a good place to start with that. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of the repayment plans here. So for 99% of the people that come out of college, they are assigned into the standard repayment plan. They're usually 10 years. I believe some of them could be 15 years. The majority of them are 10 to 15 years. So all direct and FL plans are eligible for standard repayment. Payments are a fixed amount that ensures that your loan is paid off in up to 10 years, 15 years, whatever your loan that you agreed upon, or it can be up to 30 years if you consolidate your loans. So with this plan, you will pay less over time than the other repayment plans. A lot of that has to deal with you paying less interest on these loans. So this repayment plan could be eligible for PSLF, but a lot of the time it is not, just because if you're set to pay off your loan in 10 years and you're applying for PSLF, I'll say at that point your loan will be paid off already and you won't be forgiven anything. All right, next one is the graduated repayment plan. So all direct and FL loans are eligible for the graduated repayment plan. So what the graduated repayment plan is, you'll start off with a lower payment, and every 2 years, your payment amount will keep going up and up and up.
Sorry, Brad. I was trying to type the answer to somebody.
No, so your payment plans will go up and up each 2 years. You will get a new amount, and it'll go up and up and up. And that way they can guarantee that your loan will be paid off in 10 years, or possibly up to 30 years for your consolidated loan. However, though, this payment plan does not qualify you for the PSLF program. So the standard repayment plan, this is for direct loan borrowers with more than $30,000 in outstanding direct loans that are eligible for the extended repayment plan. Payments could be fixed or graduated, and the loan will be paid off within 25 years. However, though, just like the graduate payment plan, this is not a qualifying payment plan for PSLF. So the next repayment plan is the revised pay-as-you-earn repayment plan, also known as Repay. So this is for all direct or FL plans that are eligible for Repay. So your monthly payments are 10% of your discretionary income. So when we say discretionary income, what we mean is you will take whatever your take-home pay is. If you have a rent or you have a mortgage, you subtract that amount from your monthly amount. If you have a car payment, you subtract that amount. outstanding balance on your loan will be forgiven if you haven't repaid it in full of 20 years, or for any undergraduate loans, or 25 years for graduate professional studies. So this payment plan actually is eligible for PSLF and is one of the options for you. So the next payment plan is the pay as you earn, also known as pay. Go back one, Nikki.
Oh, did I do? Sorry, Brad.
No, you're good. So you must be a new borrower on or after October 1st, 2007, and you received a disbursement on or after October 1st, 2011. So you must have a high debt relative to your income, and the payment monthly payments will be 10% of your discretionary income, but never more than what you would have paid under the 10-year standard repayment plan. So just like the replay plan, your payments are recalculated each year. They're based off of your income and family size, and you must recertify every year. So any outstanding balance left on your loan will be forgiven if you haven't repaid it in full after 20 years. And this payment plan is also eligible for PSLF. And so the next one, which is probably one of the most popular ones out there, is the income-based repayment plan, also known as IBR. So you must have a high debt relative to income. So your monthly payments will be either 10 or 15% of your discretionary income, but they will never be more than what your 10-year standard repayment plan will be. Payments are recalculated each year and are based off of your income and family size again. And you must recertify your income every year, even if nothing's changed. However, though, this one is eligible for PSLF as well. So the last one we're going to be talking about is the income contingent repayment plan, known as ICR. So this is for any direct loan borrower. They are eligible for this. So your monthly payments are the lesser of 20% of your discretionary income, or the amount you would pay on a repayment plan, with a fixed payment over 12 years, not 10. So payments are recalculated each year based off of your income and family size. Even if your information does not change, you do have to recertify each and every year. And this payment plan is eligible for PSLF. All right, so now we've talked about the right job, the right payment plan. Now we're going to talk about the right loan. So under the original PSLF program, only direct loans were eligible. So people want to know why there was a big problem in 2017, why people were not getting relief. Part of the reason was because in 2007, the federal government was still issuing FFEL loans, and they were issuing direct loans at the same time. If you own the direct loans, yeah.
Brad, hold on 1 second. You guys in the chat, okay, so people can't see the slides. I was just seeing that some people couldn't, so I just wanted to make sure people can. Guys, I know you have a lot of questions, and I promise 98% of the questions you guys are asking in the chat are coming up. Okay, so this part is important to know in order for the waiver to make sense. So just, we will answer these questions towards the end because I think you'll see 98% of them will be answered throughout the course. Go ahead, Brad.
Yep. So only direct loans are eligible if you have a FFEL or a Parent Plus loan. They, however, can be consolidated into a direct loan in order to qualify. So you must contact your servicer to consolidate your loan. Private loans are not eligible for the PSLF or any federal programs as well. If you, under the original PSLF program, if you consolidate any direct loans, any of the payments that you made before up to that point would not qualify for the PSLF program. Luckily, for the new waiver, that has changed, and we'll go into that in a little more detail. So it's very important to get good advice
recap, guys, real quick. You have to have the right job. Everyone who works in public education has the right job, from teachers to administrators to that is a right job. The right payment plan, you need to be on one of those income-driven repayment plans that Brad talked about. You need the right loan, which are only direct loans. Okay.
All right, so the right number of payments. So you must make 120 qualifying payments. All the payments must be made while working at a qualifying job, as we discussed earlier. So your payments do not need to be consecutive. So the way that the 120 works is 12 months out of the year, 10 years, 10 times 12 equals 120. If you skip months here or there, that is all right. As long as your payments come up to 120 payments, that's all that matters. So whether it takes you 11 years to make 120 payments or 15, they will all count when it's all said and done. So your payments must be made in full and on time. So on time is there to be the full amount within 15 days of the exact date, and you cannot make higher monthly payments to qualify sooner. So we'll give you the example that your average payment amount is $100, and you pay $500. That does not mean that you're making 5 months worth of payments. That extra amount does not go to skip months either as well. And that higher payment only counts for one payment, no matter how much it is. So you have to make the 120 qualifying payments.
And also, the payments do not need to be consecutive. I just find it so a little bit about me is I used to actually be a teacher. So I know that people move around in education. Maybe you were a teacher for 5 years and then you went back to school for 2 full-time for whatever reason. Now you're an administrator. That also means they do not have to be consecutive months. It just needs to be cumulative.
Yep, correct. All right, so taxes. So you may have heard that you need to pay taxes on the amount of your loan that is forgiven or canceled. So if you have $5,000 cancellation on your student loan due to a bad school or anything like that, you could possibly have to pay the income tax on it. However, though, when it does come to PSLF, your loan is not taxable. So if $5,000 is forgiven, you do not have to pay the taxes on the PSLF program. However, though, if you have an income-based payment plan and you are not pursuing the PSLF, so say you make your 20 years of payments and they forgive the rest of that loan, you will be taxed at the end of that program. So what doesn't count? Quotations usually is a good way of putting it. Partial late payments, any time that was spent in deferment or forbearance, even if you make payments during that time, those months do not count. Any payments that remain on a loan that was in default, those payments are not counted either, and payments made on a payment plan that does not qualify for PSLF, i.e. graduated plan, or any of the ones we discussed earlier, would not count under the original PSLF. And any payment that was made on a plan before October 1st, 2007. So a lot of things have changed with this waiver program, and like we said, we will get into that in the future as well. Okay, so once COVID hit, the CARES Act was passed. So during the pandemic, the federal government passed the CARES Act, which provided various forms of relief for the federal student loan borrowers. So one of the main things that it did was it suspended the monthly payments for any federal loans that people owned. So the CARES Act made all federal loan payments $0 and temporarily reduced the interest rate to 0. Even though you were not paying on your loan during the CARES Act, each $0 month does actually count towards your PSLF. So that was a good thing that came out of the pandemic. If you did make a payment during that time, you can request a refund from your servicer. However, though, we do recommend that you do contact an accountant first to make sure that there will not be any tax implications. So all payments you made during the CARES Act forbearance did reduce your principal loan balance faster than usual because for the payments that were made, if you as long as you did not owe any past due interest, all of your payments went directly to your principal balance. So that brought down your balance a lot quicker. So as of today, the federal government position is that this will be the last pause in the payment, and that it will end on December 31st. And as of January 1st, 2023, payments are expected to be made going forward. All right, so we're going to talk about staying on track for forgiveness and a couple of tips to make sure that you do qualify for the PSLF original program. First thing you need to do is certify your employment. So the PSLF employment certification form, which we refer to as ECF. It is not required annually, but by submitting it each year, the U.S. Department of Education will certify that your payments are eligible, and it will make sure to. So you're not mandated to apply every year with the ECF form, the employment certification form. However, though, we have recommended people to go ahead and apply for it every year because that way they have your employer on record for that year as well. And every time that you do send in a new employee certification, they will respond back to you and let you know how many qualified payments that they have on record for you as of that day as well. So you can find the form at studentaid.gov. So by getting your job certified annually, you won't experience any surprises later on. That's kind of one of the main reasons as well. So you will just take you'll have to take the employer employment certificate form, and you will just take it to your human resources department, and they will sign it and pay it for you. And by doing that, it will certify your employment for any past public school employment. So, like I said before, if you worked at a couple of different schools, you will need a different certification form for every school that you've worked at. So this is what the form looks like when you do go out there to the website. So you'll have to fill in your demographical information, date of birth, name, address, and security number. So when you look at this form, section 2 at the very top, if you just want to find out how many qualifying payments that you've made, you would just check the very first box, and if you want to know if your employer is a qualified employer, that's what you check. So if you believe that you've made your 120 payments and that you qualify for everything, you can check box 2. But usually box 1 is the go-to box that you would check on this form.
So basically, for those of you guys that are trying to keep track, you know you don't have your 10 years in yet, and you want to certify every year, the first box is what you would check. The second box is what you check if you're like, yep, I think I qualify for the rest of my loans to now be forgiven. I've been doing this for 10 years.
All right, so this is the employer information that you'll have to fill out from each employer that you have. So it has your employer name, their FE number, the Federal Employer Identification Number. If you do not have, most people do not have this for their employer. Your employer should have that, and they will fill that in for you. So it also tells your begin date and end date on there as well, and they will fill out all the information for you. This part will most likely be filled out by your Human Resources Department. So they will. So once they fill out the other section, they will then fill it out, sign it, date it, and then this paperwork will go back in to what was originally via Fed loans, now has changed servicers, and now it will be sent to MOHELA. So if you have never applied for PSLF, you have to have a wet signature on your form, as in you have to send in the original signed copies to MOHELA. If you are just, if you just want to recertify each year and you want to figure out how many payments you have, you can upload it out there to mohela.com/upload documents, and that's a quicker route of doing it. So one of the tools that has come out in the last year that the Department of Education has put out there is the PSLF Health Tool. So this will allow you to search for a qualifying employer, and it will also help you learn what actions you may need to take to become eligible for PSLF. And once you go through there, it will actually generate the form that you need as well. So like we said before, for your Federal Employer Identification Number, the FEIN, your employer will have that, and they should be able to fill that in for you as well. So if you want to access the Health Tool, you just go to www.studentaid.org/PSLF. So once you fill out the paperwork and you send it in to now MOHELA, you can ignore the Fed loan portion of that. You will get a confirmation back from the Department of Education saying that yes, you do qualify for it. Your begin date is certified as this date, and if it's from a previous employer, it will also have your end date certified as well. And if you're still working for the company, obviously there will not be an end date certified. So, like I just mentioned, at the end of 2021, a lot of loan servicers switched over the past year. So Fed Loan was the company that was in charge of the PSLF program. However, they no longer will be doing that, and now MOHELA has taken over. So it's extremely important to pay attention to any communications that you may have received from the financial student aid or your loan servicer, just to make sure that you know who your current loan servicer is. Also, if you just had FIA in general, you could possibly now have Melnet, MOHELA, F Financial, or Maximus as your servicer. So there could be a variety of companies who may now hold your license now instead of FIA.
All right, so this is probably why a lot of you guys are here, is this PSLF waiver. So what Brad just went through, I hope that you guys who have been checking your loans, some of those terms should sound familiar, right? You should probably know if you have a FFEL loan or a direct loan, or what type of payment plan you have. You know which qualified, which didn't. So now we're going to talk about this waiver that during this very limited time, you can receive credit for past periods of repayment, even if all of that criteria that Brad just talked about, you didn't quite have. So for example, let's say you had the wrong loan. You did not have a direct loan. You may have started teaching 20 years ago that direct loans weren't given back then. So you may have something different. You must consolidate them into a direct loan with this waiver. you must have the paperwork for consolidation done by October 31st of this year. So again, you have all those other loans, you would consolidate them into a direct loan under this waiver. If you do not know what type of loan you have, if you log into the FSA website, it will, on the dashboard, it actually tells you exactly what you have. How do you consolidate? You consolidate. There is a way through the PSLF Health Tool to kind of lead you that way. You can also consolidate by calling your servicer. Once you're consolidated, you'll receive credit towards your PSLF for any period that you have been paying on any type of loan. So, again, this paperwork must be in by October 31st. Chances are you will not have the paperwork back yet. Brad and I are on the phone with the federal student aid with FSA all the time. And right now, it's about 30 days for the loan consolidation to happen. Brad and I were told that number on Friday, and that number was from before the loan forgiveness announcement. So it's probably going to increase. So again, in order to meet that deadline, you just have to have the paperwork and the request in to consolidate. If you don't hear back by October 31st, it's okay. Just need your paperwork in. Okay. So, payment changes. Brad went through all those different payment plans. The vast majority of people, if they don't request an income-driven repayment plan, are automatically put on that standard repayment plan that would not count under PSLF. However, under this waiver period, any month spent in repayment on any type of plan can count. You do need to switch your plan to an income-driven repayment plan. Like Brad was talking about the IDR or the ICR. You will need to switch direct loan and an income-driven repayment plan. So any period that you were paying on any plan will count. Periods of repayment on loans before consolidation will count, even if you were on the wrong payment plan. If you had any late payments, they will count towards your 120 qualifying payments. If you only had partial payments, they will count towards your 120 payments. All right? So a few miscellaneous changes. Brad had talked about how you had to be working at a current qualifying employer to receive this forgiveness. During this waiver period, that is not true. So for example, you guys are educators, maybe you taught for 12 years and then you decided, hey, this isn't for me, I'm going to go into another career, or you're like, you know what, I'm going to leave the classroom and work for a regional office of education, whatever it might be. You don't have to be working there right now to get this forgiveness. The other thing I want to highlight, particularly to this group, if you were told in the past that your job did not qualify, it may qualify now. I will tell you a quick story about my cousin, whose stepdad had a Parent Plus loan out for her. They had tried to apply for this program years ago. He was a custodian for 20 years in a public school. They were denied forgiveness on that loan originally. Under this waiver, her loan just got discharged because now they're counting his job as the custodian for a public school. So The other thing about this may be teachers were oftentimes steered away from PSLF because there was a program that was launched called TLF, Teacher Loan Forgiveness. That was aimed at very specific populations and subjects. So you may have heard of this, and you usually had to teach in a rural or low-income school. You could receive up to like $17,000 forgiveness, but that was only if you were teaching at certain schools in certain subjects like math or science. Otherwise, you could maybe qualify for up to $5,000. Many teachers who weren't teaching in a rural or low-income school thought that no forgiveness program applied to them, and that is not true. PSLF applies to all public school teachers. So what hasn't changed under this waiver? You still have to make those 120 qualifying payments. Again, that's because, remember, the intent of the law, attract people to public service work for 10 years. So you must be working or have worked at a qualifying employer, work full-time, and you must have direct loans or consolidated them into a direct loan. So this is kind of the step-by-step PSLF waiver. The first thing you need to do is find out what type of loans you have, if you don't already know. So you need to log into your FSA account. You click Visit Aid Summary, and you scroll down to the loan breakout section. You expand View Loans and select View Loan Details, and a more detailed name for that loan will appear. So you'll see direct loan, Fell loan, Stafford loan, Perkins loan, whatever it may be. Based on your loans, you have to take certain action. So you need to consolidate, apply, or wait, depending on what type of loans you have. And again, this is obviously PSLF applies to people besides public school districts, but this is a webinar that's aimed at public school employees, so all of your employment should count. So the first thing is consolidate. You have at least one loan that is a Fell loan, a Perkins loan, or some other federal loan. You need to consolidate your loans into a direct consolidation loan. Then you will submit. Now, we are going to tell you something that is not on the website if you go. This is something that Brad and I have learned through our conversations with FSA. The help tool online is going to tell you, hey, you need to submit, you need to wait for your loan to be consolidated and then submit the ECF form. We are telling you to do both at the same time. So you would put in your work in your request for consolidation, and you would mail the ECF form in at the same time. This way, your paperwork is all in by October 31st. Because again, it's taking about at least 30 days for them to turn around the consolidated loan piece. So your paperwork is all in no matter what. I would also highly recommend mailing in the hard copy as a certified hard copy, certified mail. This way, you will get a receipt. They will have to sign for it, and you will get a receipt that they received it. So you will have some sort of confirmation that they have it in their hands and that you did it before the deadline. So let's say you only have direct loans. If you have only taken out loans past 2010 and they're federal, chances are you only have direct loans. So in that case, you don't have to do it. You don't have to consolidate. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to turn in the ECF form. You, again, can use the help tool to generate the form for you. But again, with the whole mailing it in, same thing applies here. I still would mail it in and have some sort of receipt that it was there. Again, we're being told as long as forms are in to federal student aid by October 31st, even if you don't hear back anything yet, as long as they're physically there, it will count. So let's say you only have direct loans, they're all assigned to Mokila, and you're like, all right, I've already submitted my ECF form. So if you've already been doing this for years, you just have to sit back and wait. And you're going to be waiting for a while because we were told before the announcement on Wednesday, they had something like 400,000 ECF forms that they still had to certify. You will need to fill out, even if you have direct loans, you may still need to submit your PSLF form if you had some of your past employment certified, but not all. Or if you had submitted an ECF form in the past and were denied for whatever reason, you're going to want to submit it again. Right, we're going to talk a little bit about refunds. Brad talked about this a little bit. So PSLF is very different. So during the COVID-19 payment pause, if you had been a part of PSLF, your payment of $0 would still count towards 120 payments. So once you get your PSLF paperwork back from the federal student aid, that's like, yes, you're enrolled in this, you can call your servicer and discuss options for a refund for that, from 2020 to the end of 2022. You would be calling your servicer, not federal student aid. It would be your direct servicer. One thing we are going to kind of mention is that if you claimed interest on your tax refund at any point, again, talk to an accountant to see if a refund would actually help you so you're not messing up something in the past with your taxes. All right. Okay, so Brad and I are kind of on shifting sands here. So this announcement came on Wednesday. We talked with FSA on Friday. So this is what we know so far as of today. If your income is below $125,000 for an individual or below $250,000 for married or heads of household, you will qualify to receive this forgiveness. There are two levels of forgiveness. One, if you received a Pell Grant in college for undergrad, you will be eligible for up to $20,000 in forgiveness. Since this was announced, one of the most asked questions that I've gotten is, how do I know if I had a Pell Grant? I can't remember from that long ago. If you log into your FSA account on the dashboard, it will show you, it will break down if you've got grants, if you got scholarships, if you've got what loans you have, it will all be there. So if you have a Pell Grant, it will be in your dashboard. If you did not receive a Pell Grant, you'll be eligible for up to $10,000 in forgiveness. Relief is capped at the amount of your debt. So in other words, if you owe $11,000, if you owed $9,000 left on your loan, they are going to forgive $9,000. You're not getting then $1,000 for your pocket. Like, it's just the forgiveness. Your relief is capped at what you owe, the amount of your debt. There is some mass confusion right now going on about how to get this relief. There will be an application for this forgiveness. It cannot be available any earlier than early October. That is because of laws. Every law has to go through a rulemaking period. So basically, they have to put up the application in a rule-making process for a minimum of 30 days to allow for public comment before they can implement it. This is the same thing for even for your school boards. Everything needs to kind of go through this 30-day period. There are probably about 8 million borrowers who are going to receive this automatically because FSA already has your income information. However, both FSA and Brad and I are encouraging everyone to fill out the form when it becomes available. Mainly because we have no way to track it otherwise, and I would hate for a borrower to think that the Department of Ed has their income just to find out that they do not. And then they miss out on this forgiveness. These next two bullets, Brad and I are relaying to you with caution. What we are currently being told is that once the form is filled out, it will take 4 to 6 weeks to actually see the relief in your accounts. The reason why Brad and I say take that with a grain of salt is only because there are 43 million people that are going to be eligible for this forgiveness. I want to believe that everything is going to work fantastically and smoothly, and everything will be done in 4 to 6 weeks. It, however, also wouldn't surprise me if there's a hiccup in the system and then it's 7 or 8 weeks or something like that. But that is what we are being told. We're also being told that anybody who wants to receive relief before the payment pause expires. So this is going to really target those borrowers who maybe only have that $9,000 left, $5,000 left, where this forgiveness is going to basically get rid of most of their loan. Then you need to apply by November 15th, is what we're being told, to receive the relief before your payment pause expires. This web address on this presentation, if you go there, you can sign up for email notification of when the application is being live. There is a new box. It's the top box. When you go there, it says new in all caps, federal student loans. Check that box, and you should receive an email when the application goes live. This was also announced on Wednesday. We do not have a ton of answers on this yet when this new income-driven repayment plan will become available, but we want to make sure that you guys are aware of it. And when payments start again, this will be a new option to keep in mind. So the new income-driven repayment plan would qualify for PSLF. However, it requires borrowers to pay no more than 5%, so half of what it is currently of discretionary income on undergraduate loans. It's also going to raise the amount of money that's considered non-discretionary. So like your mortgages, your car loans, all that stuff, utilities that you have to pay, it's going to raise that ceiling. And therefore, that amount of money is protected from repayment. And then borrowers who earn 225% under the federal poverty level, so people making about $15 an hour, will not have to make a monthly payment at all. Loan balances will be forgiven after 10 years instead of that 20 years for borrowers with $12,000 or less. Brad had talked through a bunch of the different income-driven repayment plans. It said this maybe 20 years or 15, now they're going to cut that down. And then personally, what I think is the most impactful, but it's not being talked about a lot because it's a little bit in the weeds, is that if you make your monthly payments on time, the government is going to pay your interest. So what that means is your interest will not go up. Your loan will not balloon according to interest. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Brad.
All right, so to finish up here, what we're going to talk about is a couple of resources that you can use to definitely help you, guide you, and help you find any answers you may have. So, first and foremost, if you do need any help evaluating repayment options, obtaining PSLF information, or if you're experiencing any trouble at all with your servicer, you can always call the Illinois Attorney General's Office of Student Loan Helpline. It's the 1-800-455-2456. They are also the spot that takes in all the complaints for our agency. However, though, we do have an option to submit a complaint to our agency as well, which is the website below. Or you can also submit a complaint to the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, also known as the CFPB, and that is www.consumerfinance.gov. So a couple of federal resources websites for you. Studentaid.gov is a great resource for any information you have about student loans. It discusses payment plans, payment types, what type of loans there are out there. So if you have any questions at all and want to know something in particular about a loan, that is a great resource for you. And it also does have some dedicated pages in regards to the PSLF program as well. If you also want to need specific information on the waiver, there is a website as well, or they actually have a 100 number that you can contact too.
All right.
So
now, go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I started all the way at the top up here. First one is from Audrey. Is the plus loan able to be forgiven as well as Navient? I'm assuming that you mean that if your loans are with Navient. The Parent Plus loans are eligible from my understanding, but you will need to consolidate your loan into a direct loan. So if you consolidate your loan into a direct loan and you apply for the PSLF, at that point, your loan will be transferred from Navient and will go to Mahila at that point.
I'm scrolling back up more towards the beginning right now. Kendra, if we apply while we are with a qualifying employer, are we still eligible when we leave? I've worked for a qualifying employer for 10 years and haven't been able to afford the payments for all 10. That is what the waiver will help you with. So even if you haven't been able to make full payments for all 10, the waiver should be able to help you with that, as long as you've done that qualifying work for 10 years. Okay, there were lots of questions about the PSLF application section. If you work in a school, it's whoever handles your HR for your individual school district. So that is something that you have to ask. Bigger districts, it's going to be, there's usually an entire HR section. Smaller districts, it may be the superintendent, it may be, but they will know who can sign this form, or they should.
And tax returns will not work for your employment certification. It has to be filled out by the company. I saw that pop up a couple times out here in the chat. The Chicago Public Schools fall under this. Yes, it does.
And guys, if you are, I'm just going to tell you this: if you work for CPS, you need to get your forms in immediately, because we know already that they are being swamped with requests. So get your form in ASAP. Don't wait until September 15th. Do it in the next day.
Doesn't matter what job in the education sector you hold. Nikki, I'll change that one.
It does not. So whether you're administration, whether you're a teacher, whether if you're a full-time paraprofessional, like any of those should count. I was paying on my loans through the graduated plan, then I consolidated my loans and now have a standard plan. Can I still receive the forgiveness? Yes, but only if you do this waiver, which means you will then have to change to an income-driven repayment plan, have a direct loan, and get your form in.
Let's see. Did you answer one by Megan? The employment doesn't need to be 10 consecutive years, correct? Yep, correct. If you work for 5 years as a teacher, took 3 years off, and then work 5 more years, that does work as well.
So, Abigail, it says on your website, I was told that I had to consolidate to be considered eligible. Now I'm seeing that I'm losing all those payments. Not under the waiver. So that's the whole point of the waiver is you consolidate and then all of those payments will count. So Abigail, that's the whole point of the waiver. Basically, a direct loan makes it easier for them to track. Like it's just the newer loan, shinier, newer, updated loan. So they want people in the past. Yes, if you consolidated, your past payments would not count. However, on this waiver, they do. So, Jenny, you asked about capped payments at 5% of discretionary income per the recent information. That was an announcement that was made, but there are no details yet regarding the income-driven repayment plan, and it's definitely not up yet. It's not available for people to opt into yet.
Also, on the IDR payment plan, from my understanding is that they're still going to have the original IDR plan as well as the new IDR plan. They haven't they're still clarifying all of this, so there's not definite answers on this, but there still is a chance that just because you go into the IDR program doesn't mean that you're going into the new one. So just want to make everyone aware of that there is a chance that you may not be.
Anthony, if we have already consolidated, are we still eligible for PSLF? Yes. What happens to the money we had paid before applying for PSLF? So those payments will count towards your PSLF count now. And if we apply for this program and we are approved, when do these stipulations take effect? Do our years and payments before we've applied count towards this? Under this waiver, yes. Come November 1st, as of right now, no. Which is why you need to get it in first.
So let's see. Stacey Gale, so I basically don't qualify if I've only been paying back loans since 2016, which is 6 years and a half of those were in deferment due to personal issues.
So you do, okay. You do qualify, you just don't qualify to have the rest of your loans discharged yet. However, if you are a teacher and you plan on teaching for 4 more years or be in education for 4 more years, the rest of your loans will be forgiven, but you still need to know if it still holds true that you need a direct loan and an income-driven repayment plan. So if you don't have those 2 things already, you're going to want to take care of that under the waiver period. So that way in 2026, you should be good to go. Yeah, Stacy Bill, it says HR signed my PSLF form, my principal refused to. Most principals will probably not. That's only going to be in very rural school districts where the principal may also be the HR person. Most of you guys are going to have to figure out whoever handles the HR in your districts. I know for my local school district, we don't have a quote unquote HR department, but there is one assistant that handles all of our HR questions.
Let's see, Jenny, so I made payments under Sally May and did not realize I had to be under a different loan service at the time to pursue PSLF. Are these payments eligible under the waiver? I've since transferred to Fed loan. Those payments can be eligible, and also, but just depending on what loan type you do have, you may need to consolidate it into a direct loan. And then once you do fill out your paperwork for PSLF, they will then, well, you're already with Mohila actually now, so they will get you right into the program. So those loans, those payments will count even if they were made with a different service.
But only under the waiver.
Correct. Do I have to work in public service for 10 years or just have made at least 120 payments in the right payment plan? You do have to work in public service for 10 years. There's no way to make 120 payments without being in public service.
So basically, if you paid, let's say you double paid 1 month and you're like, oh, my payment's $200, but I have extra money this month, I'm going to pay $400. That doesn't count as 2 payments. Because again, remember the intent of the law was 10 years of public service. Abigail, if you submitted your full application for PSLF and you still have not heard anything, please email Brad and I.
Also, go out, log into your account. Your balance may have been zeroed out by the federal government. Also, check that too. So we've heard of people who have just randomly gone out to their account and their loans were forgiven and zeroed out. If that was the case, you should have received a paper as well saying that your loan was forgiven. So make sure to go log into your account.
How do we see CARES Act reflected on our loan? So I'm not entirely sure what you mean. If you mean the $0 payments, it just means for your servicer right now, it's just you're not being dinged for not paying, right? Like your $0 payment counts. What happens is once you submit the ECF forms and you're enrolled in PSLF, those 0-month payments will be a part of those 120 qualifying payments for PSLF. Lorraine, the slide states can count. Is there an extra step? There's not. That's kind of legalese on our part, just in case, somebody may view the slides and interpret it slightly different, saying this person is definitely going to get forgiveness. Brandon and I can't grant the forgiveness ourselves, so that is why we have that stipulation in. This whole presentation will be emailed out. It's also being recorded, and it will be up on our IDF Cares YouTube, and I will also send that out as well.
What do we do if we reach out to HR for a previous school district, nonprofit employer, and no one responds?
Brad?
That's a good question. We've actually had that a couple times. What I can do for you, Kayla, take down my information on this last slide, and just send me an email with your email address. And what I will do, I will reach out to the federal government, and I will ask them that question for you, and I will get a better answer for you. But do please make sure to send me an email directly, and I will get back to you on that response.
DWH, do you need to work in government for 10 years or have 10 years of payments? You need to have been in a public service job for 10 years. And Anthony, so if we haven't been teaching for at least 10 years with at least 120 payments, can we get started with this program? Absolutely. That's actually why we went through all the different stuff in the beginning, is for people who may be not quite ready for the whole forgiveness type, but that way you know that your job qualifies you for this program, and you know all the different choices out there, and now you know you need a direct loan and you need to be on an income-driven repayment plan. So even if you're not ready, you haven't done your 10 years yet, you should still make sure you have the right loan, you have the right payment plan, and you should start submitting your ECF forms every year. And it will make, when you hit your 10, a lot easier.
Megan wants to know if not my loan servicer, do I still mail them my annual PSLF form? Yes, you will be mailing them your form, and once you are entered into the program, your servicer will be changed from your current one to Mahila at that time. So Mahila would be your loan servicer moving forward at that point. From Dave, if I move into retirement age and retire from working, what does that do to my payments and for working for a state entity? As long as you've worked for the state up to the point that you retire for 10 years and you make those payments, then you should qualify under PSLF. But you will need to apply for that waiver to make sure that you do get all your 10 years counted. If you retire from the state or teaching before you hit that 10 years and you are just retired, any payments after that would not count towards the forgiveness, unfortunately. You have to be in a job for those payments to count. From Hendra, what happens to your progress if you move to a private sector job? Basically, what happens with your progress is that it's just put on hold at that point. So if you're a teacher and you go to the private sector, you've been teaching for 5 years and made 5 years of payments. Those 5 years will just be on your record. And then if you come back at a later time and you complete another 5 years, then that would be your 10 years combined.
Dr. Brenda, if you paid over 120 payments and you're still paying, will I receive a refund? This is unfortunately an outstanding question that Brad and I are working on getting the answer to. So please feel free to follow up with us. I don't want to give you false hope or discourage you either way right now.
DWH, can you consolidate private loans into direct loans? No, you cannot. Is there any reason to not consolidate? How does consolidate impact interest rates? That's a good question, Casey. If you plan on working in the public sector teachers for 10 years and you're going to be making these payments, then you should consolidate into a direct loan to get your 10 years and get your forgiveness. However, as I've always told people, depending on what year you got the loan, your interest rate could have been less. And depending on if you plan on staying with the public sector or with the teaching or a state job for less than 10 years, and you refinance your loan and consolidate it, it may not be beneficial for you. That just all depends on what you see for the future of your loan. So it's kind of a official, not official answer for you. I'm sorry, I couldn't answer that any better for you, Casey.
Sorry, I'm scrolling back up because I feel like all of a sudden there was a whole lot.
Are parent plus loans eligible? Yes, you'll just need to consolidate them into a direct loan. Oh, no, go ahead, Nikki.
I was just going to say for Kay, I've been paying loans for over 20 years and working as a teacher. I did the consolidation about a month ago, and they told me I only have 7 qualifying payments. There's no way that is correct, right? So here's the thing. If you're using the online tool, what it's going to do is only count the payments that you were in an income-driven repayment plan. So without the waiver, that would be unfortunately correct. With the waiver, it is no longer correct. That is why it is key that you get this in. So what I would do, Kay, is I would contact my servicer, make sure I have direct loans, make sure that I'm on an income-driven repayment plan, and that you get your ECF forms in. I tried to reach HR at CPS in response, what is the best email address? I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm happy to try to, if you follow up with me, kind of forward your requests onward. Brad and I, unfortunately, we work for the state. We just know, we've just been hearing from other teachers who have been trying to get their ECF forms that there's a long wait. What happens if you filed for PSLF and received a letter stating you're moving into Mohila, but I never consolidated any loans? If you have, Bronwyn, if you have direct loans, you do not need to consolidate.
Holly, so I worked in nursing homes. Do those payments count? I do not actually know the answer to that. So I copied that payment down for you, or that question down for you, Holly, and I will get an answer for you on that. Like I said before, please send me an email to the email address on the screen with your contact information, i.e. your email address. So once I do find out that answer, I can respond back to you directly with that.
Do I have to consolidate Perkins loans, or can I just do this with my direct loans? That is, Yolanda, a question that you may want to actually talk through with the servicer. You can consolidate all of them into direct loans, and then that would give you more years that you were paying. What is the main difference from a borrower's perspective between repay and pay? So, Brad, the difference between repay and pay, you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Oh, gosh.
It's pretty much the same, but one of them is for a lower income bracket, I believe.
Correct.
So
it kind of depends on your income.
So if you make a certain amount of money, they're not going to offer you one of them. Like, you're only going to be able to do repay or pay. And if you're just starting to pay back now, again, the EC, so there is no PSLF application. Applying for PSLF means you're just filling out that ECF form that we talked about. And so again, I would start making once a year that you're certifying your ECF if you're starting your payments.
So the waiver program has not been very well publicized at all. Is there any chance that the 10/30 deadline will be extended? From our understanding, that deadline will not be extended. It is a hard drop date, unfortunately.
Theodore, your daughter that teaches in Scotland, unfortunately, no, this will not be hurdle unless she did. Yeah, she has to work public service here.
Let's see. If I work for a qualifying employer, would my spouse's loans qualify for PSLF? We were married when she took the loans. My understanding on that is that that only your loan would qualify for PSLF. Her loans do not qualify if she is not. She does not work for a qualifying employer.
125, is that income gross or net? That is a great question. Did we already talk about that one?
Where's the question at?
Just 125K, the income is gross or net income? I believe it's gross.
They did not say. I'm assuming it's going to be gross, but they did not clarify that. So I do not want to say particularly, but I would assume it would be gross. I have a current plus for my daughter. daughter in college? Can I consolidate that with my other loan? Yes, you can. You can consolidate a Parent Plus loan as well as yours altogether. My loans are serviced by Department of Ed Great Lakes. Is that a direct loan? Could be, could not be. You have to check on that. It could be a federal loan, it could be Perkins, but Great Lakes does service federal loans, so, but that does not mean that it is a direct loan. You'd have to check on your own system.
Stacy Gill, I was working part-time from January 13 to October 13, but became full-time as CPS in October 13. Your tenure starts from October. It has to be full-time employment.
Is the ETF form the same as the PSLF form? Yes, it is.
Ruth, my fiance, has Parent Plus loans for his son. He works for Amtrak, which is a federal service job. Would he qualify for forgiveness? Yes, he would.
If I submit to check amount of payments, but it turns out I've made enough to qualify for forgiveness, will I need to submit another additional? No, you will not.
Theodore, I'm a blind federal employee and I have 9 years serving in public. Is there a plan for people with disabilities? You would be treated the same way as every other federal employee, and you would qualify for forgiveness after your 10 years of service. Okay, Sherry, how is discretionary income determined? This is a great question. When I filled out application, I was not given an option to enter. They have their own formulas that they do, so it's not exact. Brad, I know you've seen some of that when you're examining, right?
So the discretionary income is your, if you take home pay, that's your starting point. Then they subtract out your mortgage / rent, subtract out a car payment you may have, subtract out money allowance for food, which is based off of your family size, and then they subtract out the money per month for your utilities. And then whatever that amount is left is based off of what your percentage of your payment would be. If I worked full-time for a qualifying employer for 6 months before starting to make payments on an income-based repayment plan because I was in the 6-month post-graduation grace period, does that time count as 6 qualifying payments towards 120? If you did work full-time for a employer for 6 months before starting to make payments, however, though, if you did not make payments during that time, they would not count as 6 qualifying payments, unless that occurred during COVID time, when no payments would have to be made.
So Evelyn, I'm really confused. I went on studentaid.gov and consolidated my loans. It shows now my balance is 0. What are my next steps? So did you consolidate into a direct loan? You may want to follow up with Brad and I. As long if you consolidated, so there's 2 types of consolidations. If you consolidated into a direct federal loan and your balance is 0, that means they had everything else that they needed, and federal student aid canceled out your loan. Like, you're done. However, some people consolidate and refinance with a private servicer. If that's the case, for example, I worked with a teacher who did that, who made all of her federal, she made all of her federal loans consolidated into private loans, and now she has that balance. So you may want to follow up with us separately, Evelyn. Is Parent Plus loan a direct loan? It is not. Cheryl, just starting payments. Did you say consolidation will not help me with Parent Plus loans if I plan to retire before 10 years are up? I'm a little confused on your question. If you've been working this whole time in a public service job, then they should qualify. But if not, if you plan to retire and you've only been working at a public service job for 2 or 3 years, then you retire, then they will not be forgiven. How do I count charter schools? Sorry, Brad, then you can go. How do I count charter schools if they are directly under CPS? So charter schools are the same. It has to be a public school. So there are some charter schools that are public. If you are working at a private charter school, they will not, that employment will not count. Same as if you were teaching at a private Catholic school. It has to be public school.
From Dave, what if I had a Pell Grant from years ago and it is not associated with this loan? That's a good question, Dave. I will get that information for you. I do not have an answer for you. Just said before, please send me an email with your contact information. I will get back to you on that one. Jenny, so even if I only received a Pell Grant for 2 to 3 years during undergraduate studies, am I eligible for the 20K, or is there some stipulation you need to have received one every year? I do not. No, you do not have to receive a Pell Grant every year to get the 20K. That is my understanding.
Okay, so Stacy and Evelyn, if you guys can send us an email separately, you guys are saying you consolidated with Mohila and it now says 0. It could very well be that your loans are completely forgiven. So there is some automatic things that are happening that if you had direct loans, you consolidated, you turned in your ECF forms, they may just be giving you, yep, you're done, we got this, we have everything we need from you. But I don't, again, I can't say that, Brad, and I can't vouch for any of that until we actually physically see what's happening. So email us, all right?
If my loan is in forbearance status, should I now change that to plan to an or income driven payment plan to qualify for the waiver? You don't have to change it as of today to get it qualified, just by January 1st. Is it only for education, or does it apply if you work on a different degree? Your degree type does not matter. You can have an English degree, business degree, whatever degree you had. That does not affect who is given the forgiveness for PSLF.
Kristen, if you work for full-time public service for 10 years prior to taking out loans, does that count? It does not. DWH, I volunteered full-time for a nonprofit. Can this count towards my 10 years of employment service? It cannot. You need to be a full-time employee. CC, it says loan balance 0 and grants awarded 28,000. That seems like about what you used your loan balance used to be. Then I would say it is forgiven.
Can you talk about the state of Illinois program that forgives teacher student debt?
Okay, so that's kind of, yeah. So there, I don't know anything about an Illinois specific program. The only one that I know of is the federal program, and that was called TLF. It was Teacher Loan Forgiveness, and that was granted. That was granted depending if you worked in rural or low income areas in certain subjects. But I do not know anything about an Illinois specific teacher forgiveness program.
So if we haven't been teaching for at least 10 years with at least 120 payments, can we get started with this program? Yes, you can get started any time that you started your employment. Make sure to get your information in, get your payments. I've worked in 3 different states, so I need to get a form for each school still, or just Illinois. Every school, definitely.
If you plan to retire and have 20 years of service, but have made less than 120 payments at the time of retirement, the loans will not be forgiven if you retire, correct? That is correct.
Does the 10 years count for as long as you've been working for CPS, or is it when you started paying the loans back? It would be from when you started paying the loans back, just in case you didn't answer that already.
Can teacher assistants qualify? It depends on the job. So I know that different school districts have different qualifications for teacher assistants. Some are full-time jobs and you're an employee of the district. In that case, it should apply. Some teacher assistants are not full-time, so then you would not.
Did you answer this question about third-party companies?
I did not, because I don't even see that.
Okay. Are third-party companies that claim to help with getting lower payments or the PSLF waiver safe to use, or is the process easy for one to do on their own? We do not recommend anyone go to these third-party companies. If you see a company advertising that they can help you lower your payments, or they can help you fill out the paperwork, do not go to those companies. Those companies have been labeled as, in some states, they're labeled as scam companies. Your servicer can do everything that those companies are proclaiming that they can do. Your servicer will help you with the PSLF waiver. Your servicer should, if you contact your servicer and want to get into an income-based payment plan, they will do that for you. So you do not need to contact one of those third-party companies.
Cheryl, how many months of pause for COVID are they counting? It's from whenever I think it was from March 2022 until December of March of 2020 to December of 2022.
Did you answer the one about the administrators who make more than $150K?
I don't even see those, so no.
So I'm at 4:35 p.m.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Administrators who make more than $150K are or are not eligible. That depends as to your marriage status and how you file your taxes. So if you are an individual filer and you make more than $150K, you would not be eligible. I believe the married, 150 will not be eligible because 125 is the individual, or 250 for the married.
DWH, if you have questions about the Illinois Teachers Loan Repayment Program, reach out to ISAC individually, because that's not anything that Brad and that's going to be something separate through the state.
Orlando Rivero, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, with the new income-driven payment plan with that 5% minimum payment rule for this plan also apply to graduate loans as well. Any questions I do not know the answer, please send me your contact information and I will find out that answer for you.
Some of these will be answered.
I've been a teacher for 10 years, but when I tried to fill the form, it said I wasn't working for 10 years. How can I refuse this? If your employer, once your employer fills out the form and does say that you did work for 10 years, that will correct the issue for you. I'm not sure if I completely understand your question, but when your employer does fill out the form for you, they should put in how many years that you did work.
DWH, great question. How are summer months treated for counting the number of years? Does the school year count as a year or as 9 months? It counts as a year because you guys are paid yearly.
If you work for a public service agency while completing your degree, does that 10 years of service still count? Only if you work full-time with that agency.
Sue Luzzi, ICR does work for PSLF. Would Title I grant recipients be eligible for PSLF? Yes. Will my employment as a home care aide qualify toward the 10 years employment? That depends on who your employer is. If you go to the Federal Student Aid site, there is a PSLF employer search, and you can search to see if your employer is there. If it is a private home care company, then it will not. If it is a home care aid through like the state or a state hospital, then it can.
Orlando, another good question again on the IDR payment. Does the 10-year payment rule for $12,000 or less apply to the total loan balance, or would that just apply to each loan individually? I believe it is your total balance, but I will check and get that answer for you as well. I sent my ECF form at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. I still haven't heard back from anyone. Should I just send a new form? If you send it in, we'll say May, June of 2022, you should have received something back from them. It cannot hurt to send another form, to be the truth, Michelle. So if old loans and new loans are consolidated, how is your payment count calculated? So say that you took out a loan from 2010 to 2014, that was your undergraduate studies, and you went back and got your master's, we'll say, from 2018 to 2021. Even if you consolidate it, your first undergraduate loans, so from 2014 to, we'll say you worked from 2014 to 2024, that portion of your loans would be forgiven in 2024. However, though, the new portion from your master's would not be forgiven until 10 years after that date. So even though you are consolidating them, they would only forgive a portion of it when it comes to the 10 years.
Your work history, Kristen, for PSLF is this on Mohila. It's only if you have already turned in ECF forms. If you have been turning in ECF forms every year, it should be on your financial aid dashboard. If you have not, then no. It will not be there yet. I've been working in my public school district for over 10 years. I am now in school with loans. Can I take advantage of this forgiveness program? Yes. So if you are currently in school, you need to go back. You need to make sure you have the right loan, the right payment plan. But if you plan on staying in public education, then absolutely you can.
So Daisy here says, for those of us who just started teaching and are only 3 years in and have not made any payments because of the pause in payments, we cannot do anything now. No, actually you can still go out there, turn in your ECF form, get your employer certified, get your application in for the PSLF program, and make sure that all those months will get counted towards your, or we'll make sure that so you will get credit for those.
Rochelle, you don't ever need to do anything in terms of transferring to Mohila. It will happen automatically once you turn in your ECF form and you're part of the PSLF program. They handle that transfer for you. You don't need to worry about it. Did we?
Sorry, I'm looking through them. Okay, from Kathy Ray. I don't think you answered this one yet. My loans were already automatically moved to new servicers, Sally Mae, Mobila, Direct, and currently Aid Advantage. And now are super high due to paying these servicers off with new interest on top of old interest from previous loan servicer providers. Some of my loans are direct since 2007. Can I consolidate any lenders after that? Yes. If you do have loans with numerous different servicers, like say you have loans that are with Navient and are with Mobila, as long as those are all federal loans, you can consolidate those into one company to make it easier for you. If I paid over 120 payments and still paying while I receive a refund, that is a touchy subject that we have not gotten direct answers to. They are telling, we've gotten a yes and a no. So depending on when you met the 120 payments, will affect if you get a refund or not. I know that doesn't completely help Dr. Brenda, but that is kind of what we've been given.
Lauren Clancy, what happens if you don't get our employment certification back from CPS by the deadline? That is something that I am working on with Brad and I's boss with CPS to try to fix that problem.
Can we send digital copies of the PSLF form, or can I print form and mail the copy? If this is your very first time for applying to the PSLF, you do have to send in a hard copy to Mobila. The very first copy does have to be a wet ink signature. So every payment from 2007 counts towards the 120. Only any payment made after October 1st, 2007 going forward. That.
Yes, direct, subsidized, and unsubsidized loan consolidation plan, but all of that counts towards PSLF waivers. I have a consolidated FELP and direct loan. Should I consolidate them together? If you want them to all be forgiven under PSLF, they all have to be direct loans.
Is there a plan for people with disabilities? I do not believe that. As far as I am aware, there is no specific plan for people with disabilities. But I can double check on that for sure for you, Theodore. So please send me your information, and I will follow up with the federal government and make sure I get a direct response for you on that question.
So, Brad, I think you're starting to get into where I started a little bit.
Okay.
So just so you know, I think we're catching up now. Dave, I have a message from Ed Financial. They say I don't have to take any action at this time. Is this correct? You could email Brad and I, and we just need to know more information before that. That is, we need to see if you have the right loan, the right payment plan, except and that your ECF forms are turned in. If you're talking about just the 10K forgiveness, that's the blanket cancellation, not just the PSLF. You do not have to take any action yet because the application is not out yet.
You may have answered this one. What's the difference between IPR and IPR? Can IPR work with the loan forgiveness? Yes, it can. That is one of the eligible PSLF plan, or payment plans eligible for PSLF.
I think Brad and I are starting to like cross where we were at. So if you have any other questions, please put them towards the bottom of the chat now if we didn't get them to them. If I have a Parent Plus loan for my child currently, do those have to be consolidated, or are those able to be forgiven right away? Unless they are direct loans. Oh, sorry, Kay, I realized that you sent it to me privately, but only direct loans can be part of PSLF.
What if you work as a graduate student getting paid for research from a grant? Does that count for service? Yes and no. It kind of depends as to who was paying, if that makes sense. If you're being paid by the college, then you have a chance of it. Nikki kind of, her family ran into the situation.
Yes. So you're saying the university. So if it's a public university,
paid for it, she said.
Yeah. As long as your actual employer was the university, like that's who sent you, like on your W-2 form, that's who's listed, then it shouldn't count. There's some weird things sometimes with higher ed and different government jobs where if you're on a contract and you're being paid by a contractor, that will not count, even though you're physically at the higher ed institution or government institution. But as long as who is paying you is on your W-2 is a public higher ed institution, you should be good.
Can I include loans like co-sign for a family member? For consolidation purposes, you can, but if you're looking for the PSLF waiver, those loans will not count towards the PSLF forgiveness. I wrapped up in December school. Should I seek to consolidate now or wait? I work full-time for 501c, part-time for Uncle Sam. Does this count? If you're wrapping up school now, most likely you probably have direct loans, so you